That was pretty bad. And I was very upset inside me. I thought, bloody hell, he could have done it without doing that. Why did he have to do it? And I remember they had their accident and they both walked. They didn't even look to each other. They walked to the pit. And as Ayrton came in the garage, we were all looking at the television. And he turned around and he said to me, they're not going to stop the race. And I said, no, I don't think so. But inside me, I wanted to stop the race.
He had this look on his face. You could say resignation, you could say lots of things, but whatever it was, when ultimately I came into contact, I just said, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in you.
Did your respect for him diminish at that time, or?
Yes, I think I saw him with different eyes.
He deliberately took Prost off in 1990, but all denied it and nothing was done. People all knew, but nobody said anything. And anyway, 91, I got elected just before the Japanese Grand Prix. And I'd just been in the office a fortnight, so I was politically sort of quite weak. And Balès, remember, was still president of the FIA. I was only president of the sport. And Senna, in the post-race press conference, completely said that he'd taken Prost off. He'd done it, meant to do it. And Ron Dennis, of course, immediately realised that this could be very serious, because it's a sort of hanging offence to do that. They could have taken his licence away. So he had a word with Senna saying, you've got to sort of withdraw, apologise and so on. And Ayrton wouldn't. Absolutely, he said, I was telling the truth, and I always tell the truth. So anyway, Ron said to me, will you have a word with him? So I got Senna up to the room, and I said, Ayrton, look, there are two kinds of people in sport. There are amateurs and professionals. The amateur does something because he feels like it. The professional does something because it's in his interest as a sportsman. What you did was amateur. And he sat and he thought, and then his eyes started to well up, and he said, you're right. Yeah, you're right. He's very intelligent, Senna. He said, you're right, but he said, that bastard took that race away from me, and I've been doing this since I was 6 years old, and I've never done anything else, and it's my life, and he took that race away. So we had all of that. Anyway, in the end, but with Senna together, we sort of composed some weasel words for an apology that was not enough for him to feel he'd apologised, but enough to make it very difficult for Balès to attack him. And that was that. But it was an extraordinary thing, because I realised then sort of just how sort of passionate he felt about the whole thing. It's just extraordinary. And of course, he was an amazing talent.
1991, the controversy had subsided, the opposition from Alain, Prost and Ferrari had faded, and Ayrton Senna was world champion once again. And in his remaining years with McLaren, there were plenty of opportunities to see a Formula One legend at his brilliant best.
Perhaps his most famous drive, the opening action in the European Grand Prix at Donington in 1993.
Prost gets away well, so does Hill, so does Schumacher. Senna is crowded out and is down to 5th position. And Ayrton Senna is up to 4th position ahead of Schumacher and challenging Wendlinger as they go round the right-hander into the old hairpin. Senna is up to 3rd. And Senna goes through into the lead. He's passed Alain Prost, so the McLaren leads. Prost 2nd, Hill is 3rd.
I think they're the best 2 laps of any Grand Prix in the history of the sport. I went down in the cockpit and he just grabbed my arm and he said, oh, I feel very, very strange to do this on a McLaren for the last time. And I said, but you feel strange, well, how you feel? We feel, and we don't want you to go, you know, you're going on your own. And then I said, I don't need to tell you how important this race is for us, but if you win it, I love you forever. And then I saw his eyes, they were kind of watering, you know, he got very emotional. But he was an emotional guy, I would say, good Latin. But it didn't affect him, you know, so it affected me more. I said, oh, bloody hell, I'm getting him emotional just before the start.
Of the race.
Yes. But Start won the race and we become the most successful Grand Prix team. And then we had a party, fantastic. And after the race, it was the Tina Turner concert, and he pulled him into the stage and sing
Simply the Best.
Simply the Best.
1992 and 1993, Williams dominated Formula One, giving the world title first to Mansell and then a returning Alain Prost. For 1994, though, Senna would join Damon Hill at the championship favourites. Prost quit the sport rather than have Senna as a teammate again, but the Williams team had the driver they wanted, and Senna had the drive that he'd been chasing for a long, long time.
By 92, Ayrton had sort of rather decided that McLaren were not going to be able to provide him a competitive car, and Ayrton was ringing Frank the whole time saying, I want to drive your car, I want to drive your car.
I was in Hungary with Dad. It was over the years he's taken me, when I was starting in 14, 15, he would take me to one extra race in addition to Silverstone, so I would always choose Hungary. And I was there when Nigel won the 1992 World Championship, but I remember walking into Dad's hotel room about 9:30 at night to say goodnight to Dad, and into connecting doors, walking in my pyjamas and to say goodnight, thinking just Dad would be in the room, and there's Ayrton Senna kind of standing there having a conversation with him, and I was mortified, as you would be as a 14-year-old girl, and your hero, who I had a massive crush on, is there, and there I am in my floral pyjamas.
Well, we got on famously when he first started, and obviously he knew I was a big fan, and he appreciated that. And then we were given the opportunity of his driving for us. But he was all in all a remarkable individual. And, I've been quoted before, and I'm quite happy to repeat the quote. He certainly was on the way to becoming a president of Brazil. I think he had politics in mind. I think if he had done so, he'd have probably walked it.
We knew what he could do, and we were learning him, he was learning us, and he was a quiet guy. So we had to find out what he wanted, and he told us what he wanted with the car, but he was quite a quiet guy, so I was working along with Julian Jacobi, his manager, trying to get into him and get him what he needed and just make him comfortable in the team. And it was starting to come together, to be honest. We were on a one-to-one thing, whereas at the start of the year, we didn't quite know what the communication channels were. So, it was all starting to come together, to be honest, and he was more relaxed with the team than he was at the start.
But things started badly for Senna. His first Williams Grand Prix, his home race in Brazil, and an unforced error puts him out.
That is Senna! Senna! My goodness, Ayrton Senna frantically gesticulating, and that's blown the race for him if Michael Schumacher can just keep going.
Michael Schumacher at Benetton was the new challenger to Senna's prestige, and while he was making a flying start to the season, Senna left the second race in Japan still looking for his first points.
And it is go! Yellow flags waving in the background, and straight into the lead goes Schumacher. Olivier Panis has stopped, and a spinner there. That is Senna, and he's rammed by Larini. Ayrton Senna is out of the Pacific Grand Prix, the man who has yet to score points because he failed to finish in Brazil.
One thing I do remember is that when he spun chasing Schumacher in Brazil, about 10 laps from the end, I think, and he came back in the garage and we said, what happened on the car? He said, nothing, I just made a mistake and I'm sorry, it won't happen again. And we also looked at each other and went, okay, fair enough, we know that won't happen again. So I think, I think the car wasn't quite where he thought it would be, and it wasn't quite where we thought it would be, but I think we got to the bottom of it. Unfortunately, it was a bit late when we did.
We have some problems, but I think we have a good car, and I think we have a good engine too. We just have to work on these problems at this moment, which the team is doing. And for that, we have some modifications here at Imola, which we shall be trying the next 2 days, hoping to improve part of the difficulties we have found so far.
So we went to Imola with, I remember the front page of the Autosport, it said Schumacher 20, Senna 0. And Ayrton was the sort of, it was a very, very tense environment.
We are here in this third round, the European season, starting now, starting from zero. So basically our championship starts here, 14 races, not 16.
Imola 1994, the fatal accident of Roland Ratzenberger on the Saturday, and the crash that claimed the life of Ayrton Senna on the Sunday. 20 years on, everyone remembers the mood and detail and implications of that tragic weekend.
I remember well, we walked together to the briefing in the morning on Sunday, And Ayrton says to me, Gerhard, next week or 2 weeks, we should all sit together about safety. We should talk about safety. There's a couple of ideas I have. We would like to talk with you.
During the safety car period, 7 laps, there was no, apart from us saying to Ayrton, keep over on the right-hand side on the grid, there was no exchange, although quite certain the radio was working. He didn't say anything to us, and we didn't say anything else to him.
We liked each other, really. And I remember in the starting grid, I was behind with the Ferrari and he was sitting in the car already and I was just walking back. And of course, Ferrari driver in Imola, me was very special there. So I got all the fans jumping in up and down and waving to me. And Ayrton was looking to me and was loving and was doing like this, and you could see, we've been friends. He was happy for me. And that's the last thing I remember him, and that's how I like to remember him.
It was an enormous shock for all of us, and the worldwide grief at this tragedy had absolutely no precedent.
For Frank, it was, you know, an amazing day when he finally signed Ayrton, and I think to this day he will continue to regret that it was cut so short, his time with us.
I think he would take it to the limit. Of course, he would be afraid of getting hurt or dying, but not to the point where you would deter him from exploring the limits.
He had this incredibly personality, electricity around here. I mean, you could be in the paddock and then Ayrton said, wow, Ayrton Senna. He had this thing, you know, you either have it or you don't.
Ayrton Senna wins at Monaco for the 5th time.
Without Ayrton, it would have been maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 more championships. It's possible.
Got to remember him as a great racing driver and a quite incredible personality.
If my life would have been different, yes, maybe a little bit, but at the time, not now.
He was one of those guys that he have an aura, wherever if he comes up into a room, that room changes.
I feel happier now than I could have been if I was only a racing driver winning 1 or 2 more championships.
I definitely think in Ayrton's case that he totally put his faith in God, and whatever would be God's will, and he just got on with his job.
I had a tremendous time. You know, the records speak for themselves, the results, the championships. The most important thing to all of us is to keep the good moments and keep the happiness that we had together.